Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend. I'm Jason Godbey, and today on the program, got a very special show for you. We got a preview of the upcoming Tribeca Film Festival. But first, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Sponsored by Black Magic Design, the world's highest quality products for the feature film, post and broadcast industries. blackmagicdesign.com. And by JMR Rentals, professional, digital, cinema and broadcast equipment rentals in Brooklyn, New York. jmrny.com.
And joining me now, you know him, you love him from previous episodes of the show. You've also read his work on sites like Collider and Ain't It Cool News, Mr. Eric McClanahan.
Hey, Jason, how are you? Good to be here.
It's good to see you, buddy. Good to have you back in the Rabbit Hole studio, back in, here to talk about Tribeca. We talked a little bit about, we said we were going to be at Tribeca the last time we did an episode together.
Yes.
But now we're actually going to talk about what's going to be at Tribeca. The Tribeca Film Festival starts on June 5th and runs through the 16th here in New York City at various venues. They basically take over the entire island of Manhattan. And we're going to be covering the red carpet like we did last year, which is a lot of fun. And it's a promising looking year, I think, so far.
Yeah, I got the email of all the film releases and very impressive. Like, I got very excited and started making a long short list and filled up a sheet of notebook paper and then had to go over to the back because there's so many great films, great premises, great actors, actresses, directors. I'm very excited about this year.
There's a lot happening. The opening night film is going to be, it's called a documentary about Diane Von Furstenberg called Diane Von Furstenberg, Woman in Charge. According to the festival website, it's directed by Charmine Obaid Chinoy and Trish Dalton. Hope I didn't butcher that name. It's the story of the fashion designer / icon, Diane Von Furstenberg. She's a child of a Holocaust survivor, a princess by marriage, which I did not know, and the founder of a fashion empire. And we got some interviews featuring Oprah Winfrey, Marc Jacobs, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and more. And that's opening night, and it's a documentary which says a lot about this year because if you look at the slate, there's a ton of docs.
Yes, yeah. And we were talking about this earlier that I think we talked about this during the Sundance episode that documentaries are so popular right now, more than likely as a result of the strikes that happened, where you couldn't get a writer and you couldn't get stars, so you had to mine from real life. But there's some really great documentaries this year, a lot that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, we're playing strike ball. You know, we're playing strike ball, but you know, it did. I think it gave people the chance to get really creative, and you know, don't forget some of these projects were probably born in COVID, because in docu years, you know, kind of like dog years, you know, it you know, for every 1 year it takes to make a normal like a narrative film, it probably takes like 3 or 4 to make a documentary. But what are you excited about this year?
Well, starting with the documentaries, the BRATS documentary by Andrew McCarthy is basically he goes back and he catches up with a lot of the old Brat Pack. So he catches up.
Were you a fan of those pictures?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was an unabashed Anthony Michael Hall fan, little blonde, blue-eyed kid who was kind of an outcast. I saw myself on the screen in him.
Hit close to home, did it?
Yeah, so very much. Anytime Anthony Michael Hall was in the film, I was there. Of course, I had a crush on Molly Ringwald. Who wouldn't?
Everybody did.
But yeah, Andrew McCarthy catches up with them. Rob Lowe, Ali Sheedy, Muriel Hemingway catches up with all of them to see how they're doing, what they're doing, and to talk about what being that iconic at that time did for them, for their careers, but also for them personally, you know, in those formative years of their lives. So that's going to be really good.
To me, that's probably high on my list as well, just because it's like Gen X fantasy camp.
Absolutely.
kind of thing, you know, because, how many movies did they make? You had all those John Hughes pictures, right? Mm-hmm. So you got like Pretty in Pink, Breakfast Club. Then you've got films like Some Kind of Wonderful, 16 Candles. Mm-hmm. They were the films in the 80s that really kind of saw young people. Like, people now talk a lot about representation. Mm-hmm. That was us. That was our suburban,
agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
Suburban white kids.
Yeah. Yes.
I feel
yeah,
seen.
Exactly. No, the first time I saw The Breakfast Club, I was like, oh, okay, I am a person. I have a personality. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. Another one that is a non-negotiable for me, I've got to see, is a film called Group Therapy, and it's a documentary, but it is arranged in the form of a group therapy session, and it's big names in comedy having very frank discussions about mental health. So you've got Neil Patrick Harris, Mike Birbiglia, Tig Notaro, several other big names. Those were the ones that stood out. I'm a huge Mike Birbiglia fan, have been ever since Two Drink Mike back in 2005. And this sounds like an urgent conversation that that I think levity can bring us into. I think a lot of people think it's a big scary thing, and adding a bit of levity to it, I think, will really help these conversations move forward. So I'm very excited about that. That's going to be on June 6th.
It's produced by Kevin Hart.
Yes.
So, a doc about comedians produced by probably the biggest comedian on the planet right now.
There you go. So that's a non-negotiable. I've got to see that one. 1-800 On Her Own, a documentary about Ani DeFranco, who I'm a huge fan of. A documentary about Linda Perry, the songwriter. And she was the singer for Four Non-Blondes, but her big claim to fame is as a songwriter. She's written so many songs for so many different artists.
And producer, I think, as well.
Correct. So she's a big draw, so that's going to be another good one. There's a documentary about cheese that I'm very excited about.
Wait, the documentary's about...
It's about cheese. It's called Shelf Life. And it's about the aging process of cheese, and throughout the course of the film, they draw parallels to the human experience, to the human life cycle in the cheese cycle. And as a cheese lover...
We're aging like cheese?
We're aging like cheese. I'm very excited about that one. That one sounds a lot of fun to me. Couple of different documentaries about AI. There's one called Pandora's Code and another one called The Thinking Game. So I think that's, especially with the strikes, that's a big hot button issue.
So
right
we
now.
just did an episode with the EVP of SAG where we spoke about AI. It's definitely a hot topic. I've had several conversations this week about it. And, it's really, I have mixed feelings. It's one of those things that it's revolutionizing the industry, definitely. But is it doing it in a good way? And is it going to improve things? Is it going to help things? Or are people going to be responsible for this technology? There's so much about it. But I also, kind of wonder, is this just, hey, look, we can make cool stuff,
Right? I mean, well, with CGI, remember when that was coming into film? A lot of people were concerned about the hand-drawn animators, that they weren't going to have work anymore. And you look at early CGI, a lot of it is atrocious.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's really bad. But then you see how far we've come in that, and we see how filmmakers are using it as a very useful tool to tell their stories. I think that in a couple decades, maybe less, as technology is moving at exponential speeds, that we will look at AI as a tool that can enhance and help to amplify an original artist's voice.
I think the scary part is that we don't know what, the question mark. Also, I have said this before, but AI now is not artificial intelligence. This is not HAL the computer. This is a Xerox machine.
Correct.
With a composite switch, where it's just basically combining stuff from the internet into something slightly newer. It's a plagiarism generation machine right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're calling it AI, but AI is to moviedom as people remember the hoverboards that came out?
Yeah.
That were when we heard hoverboard, we thought Back to the Future, but it's just a skateboard.
Skateboard, one wheel in the middle.
Yes.
Middle. Yeah.
That's what we're riding on right now when it comes to AI. Anyway, moving on.
Rounding out documentaries, there's a documentary about the band called Alien Weaponry, which is a New Zealand band that sings in Maori, in the Maori language. I actually saw them open for Ministry a few years back, so I'm interested in that. There's a documentary about McVeigh. It's called McVeigh, about Timothy McVeigh, the bomber. And actually, I'm sorry, that's not a documentary, that's a film. I'm getting my stuff.
Oh, there was
mixed
just a
up now.
documentary. There's just a documentary series, I think, about him.
Yes, correct. So that's why I got mixed up. There's a documentary about the growing socioeconomic divide in America and how it's ripping apart the fabric of communities, called America's Burning, and that's going to be narrated by Michael Douglas, which makes me think, Falling Down, that classic.
Right.
That classic film. So that's going to be interesting. And another documentary I'm interested in is called Hacking Hate. And it's another pandemic era documentary about an activist who goes undercover online as a white supremacist and visits those message boards. And during that time when everyone was so frustrated and went to the internet to scream, tries to see what people are screaming about and if there's a way we can try and rein that hatred in.
Interesting. Yeah, let me, because I did see there were so many documentaries. BRATS, you mentioned, Group Therapy. There's another one about comedy called Outstanding, A Comedy Revolution, and that is a documentary that steps into the world of queer comedy, and that's got people like Eddie Izzard, Rosie O'Donnell, Lily Tomlin, so like famous queer comedic artists. Before the movie, there's going to be a stand-up performance starring some of the people in the film.
Yeah, that'll be really cool.
There's another documentary about LIZA. It's called LIZA, a truly terrific, absolutely true story with Liza Minnelli. I don't know if you know much about her life, but she was just this incredibly talented person. And she's the daughter of Judy Garland, so she's got the best genes in the world, but not the best social sense or life direction.
Yeah.
And then there's another documentary. God, there's so many documentaries called Satisfied, which is a profile of Renee Elise Goldsberry, who you know from Hamilton fame. She's like the lead woman in that. I remember I first saw her on an episode of Documentary Now. Have you seen that show?
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember the one where they did it? It was like a parody of the D.A. Pennebaker documentary. It was called Co-op.
Oh, no.
And it's like the recording of a musical. And I saw her and I was like, oh my God, where did they find her? She's amazing. And I was like, oh, she's in Hamilton. Oh, okay. She's in the biggest musical on the planet. Yeah, and so there's more, but we got to move on because we're going to run out of time. We just talk about documentaries all day.
Exactly. I did want to say the Outstanding. I am excited about that documentary as well because I think queer representation in comedy. Again, I think levity is the grease that's going to help us have difficult conversations. I just saw Eddie Izzard perform Hamlet in the city.
Was it funny?
She added some comedy to it, yes. But for the most part, it was very faithful to the script.
Okay.
The funniest thing...
And this is a one-person show?
Yeah, one person. So if you've ever seen any of Izzard's stand-up, she riffs on conversations. And so it's like, I'm over here. It's like, oh, yeah. But what was great was she did Rosencrantz and Guildenstern as hand puppets. Yes, my lord. It's still running in New York. It just changed theaters, so if you want to check that out, it's worth it. It's amazing.
So we got some narrative features as well.
Yes.
The first one I have listed is All That We Love. This is the website descriptions, by the way. After losing her beloved dog, Emma embarks on a heartwarming journey of self-discovery and reconnection with loved ones. Okay. Margaret Cho is in it, and Jesse Tyler Ferguson. Could be interesting. There's another one called Jazzy with Lily Gladstone. It's this filmmaker's follow-up to the award-winning The Unknown Country, captures the joy and heartbreaks of childhood friendship as young Jazzy navigates the challenges of growing up with her peers in South Dakota. South Dakota, not a lot of representation in movies.
No.
Unless like old Westerns.
Exactly.
Or new Westerns.
And I think, Lily Gladstone she's very hot right now, coming off her Oscar nomination. And so I think in South Dakota, there's a lot of reservation territory there. So I think
Yes.
we're going to hear a distinct voice in this film. So I am excited about that.
Then we got another one called Firebrand, which stars Alicia Vikander and Jude Law. The British are coming. In Tudor England, where court intrigue and the king's paranoia threaten her survival, Catherine Parr navigates a perilous marriage to the volatile Henry VIII. Now, we've seen a bunch of Henry. There was a whole series called The Tudors.
Yes.
The Tudors?
Yeah.
I don't know how you say that word. Also stars Eddie Marzan, who is a fantastic actor, by the way. He's in so many things. You'll know who he is. Aaron Doherty and Simon Russell Beale. Then we've got something called Sacramento. Free-spirited Ricky reappears in father-to-be Glenn's life. The two former best friends embark on a spontaneous road trip to from L.A. to Sacramento. It's a buddy-buddy comedy. Michael Cera and Kristen Stewart are in it. We interviewed Michael Cera last year on the carpet. He's an interesting interview. Maybe we'll get to talk to him again. And then we got something called Winter, Spring, Summer, or Fall, starring Jenna Ortega and Piercy Hines White. They star in a teen love story about a Harvard-bound girl genius and a laid-back guy who find each other in their final year of high school. So, speaking of John Hughes, romance, that sounds like a John Hughes film.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a like maybe a gender-swapped 16 Candles kind of thing. I like it. I that. Most of those made my list, except for Firebrand. I will go on record right now as saying I don't love period films.
Oh well,
I saw that and I was like, nah, I'm good.
I'm fine with period films. It just depends on the period. Like, I'm not a big swords and sandals guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some people love that sort of Ben-Hur and, ancient Greek stuff. Unless it's like Clash of the Titans or, something like that.
Yeah.
It's usually not my thing. Like, I don't want to see... There were two movies of Hercules that came out in the same year, and I couldn't bear to watch either one of them. What else is on your list? What else you got? Any other highlights?
One thing I noticed is there's a lot of great New York-specific stories that I saw that I'm really interested in seeing. One's called The French Italian, about a prank war in a tenement building that kind of goes awry. Griffin in Summer is going to be about a young playwright in the city who falls in love with a handyman, and that's got Melanie Linsky in it, so obviously I'm there. Bad Shabbos with Kira Sedgwick and Milana Vaintrub.
Is that one that you saw at Sundance? Am I calling?
No, I haven't seen that one yet. At Sundance, I was able to see Between the Temples, which is going to be at Tribeca.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, that was that was an interesting one. So that hopefully we can catch them on the carpet and talk to them about that. That'll be fun. There's another one called They're Here. It's about New York City locals who have had experience with UFOs. I'm not sure if that's a narrative or if that's a documentary. So I'm really interested to see.
Or a bit of both.
Yeah, what the approach is on that.
A docudrama, if you will.
Yeah. Internationally, there's a couple of things that really caught my eye. There's one called Don't You Let Me Go from Uruguay about a person who loses a friend and then boards a time-traveling bus to go back and spend more time with them.
That's cool.
Right? It's a really neat premise. One called Some Rain Must Fall from Singapore about class differences. And reading the summary or synopsis gave me real big, Parasite vibes. The Oscar-winning film. So,
sure.
Yes, I thought that was pretty cool. And there's one called The Shallow Tale of a Writer Who Decided to Write About a Serial Killer.
Wait, that's the title?
That's the title of the film. And Steve Buscemi's in it. So I'm there.
We interviewed him last year.
So
it was a great interview. That was my favorite one, where you got photobombed by Richard Gere.
That was so cool. There's another one, Lake George, with Shea Whigham, who's awesome in everything he does.
Didn't they make a... No, I'm thinking of Lake Placid. That was the horror
That
picture.
was, with the alligator. No,
Big
Lake
alligator.
George, it appears to be a dramedy, I think.
Okay.
Or maybe just a dramatic film.
No giant alligators to be found.
You don't rule anything out. It's
We don't know.
Tribeca.
We don't know.
It's an independent film. But Shea Whigham is awesome and everything is in. And Carrie Coon is in that, who we love from the
Also
new Ghostbusters
fantastic
films. So.
Yeah. She's been great. And I think the first thing I saw her in was Gone Girl.
Oh,
where she plays Ben Affleck's sister in that.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful actor. The other one that I had written down that looked interesting to me, because we ran their press release about the TV project, the series projects that they've got. There's one with Jake Gyllenhaal, and the EPs are like David E. Kelly and J.J. Abrams, so basically like television royalty.
Yeah.
And it's based on a best-selling novel. It's called Presumed Innocent, starring Gyllenhaal in the lead role of the chief deputy prosecutor. Now, is this looks like the movie with Harrison Ford. Is this the same premise as Presumed Innocent with Harrison Ford? Listen to this description here. So we got starring Gyllenhaal in the lead role as chief deputy prosecutor Rusty Savage, which I think is the name of the character. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but the series takes viewers on a gripping journey through the horrific murder that upends the Chicago prosecuting attorney's office when one of its own is suspected of a crime. The series explores obsession, sex, politics, and the power and limits of love as the accused fights to hold his family and marriage together. Star-studded ensemble cast includes Ruth Negga, Bill Camp, Elizabeth Marvel, Peter Sarsgaard, and Renata Rensiv. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And there's supposed to be a talk back after the screening, but that sounds an awful lot like it is presumed innocent. Okay,
it is. So yeah, they're turning it into an episodic television show. I
wonder if I'm going to enjoy that if I've already seen the movie and know, unless they change the ending.
Well, and
I remember the ending to that. It's one of those got like a banger shocker of an ending.
Right. Well, I think
so. Maybe don't see Presumed Innocence, the movie, if you want to watch this show.
Well, that's like saying don't watch the Fallout series if you've played the game. It's a different take. It's a journey. Gyllenhaal's always turns in great work. So I think it's definitely gonna be worth watching, especially, with David E. Kelley and J.J. Abrams behind it. I think they're going to be able to, draw the tension, keep the dramatic tension going.
Mm-hmm.
But I've like, they recently did Fatal Attraction as a series with Joshua Jackson.
Okay.
They did that with Westworld. I think this is the new model for television. Everything old is new again.
This is true,
and they've done that to some good effect,
as well as a great Peter Allen song.
So yeah, I think that'll be cool.
All right, is there anything else you want to mention before I have to wrap up?
Oh, there's a film called Bang Bang with Tim Blake Nelson as a retired pugilist.
Yes, I saw that.
I do want to see that because he's fantastic. He got us through the pandemic with his role in Buster Scruggs. So as Buster Scruggs, so that was fantastic.
He'll always be the shortest guy in the trio from Oh Brother Where Art Thou for me.
Exactly.
And the only guy who did his own singing, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah. He's such a talented guy.
Yeah.
Overlooked,
and a director as well.
Yeah. There's also one more documentary I left out, and I apologize. The untitled Casa Bonita documentary.
Oh, yes. This is the one you mentioned the other day.
Yes. Trey Parker and Matt Stone got together to rescue the entertainment family restaurant Casa Bonita, which is featured in South Park in an episode or two. They love the place. It's one of those places where you go and you get nachos, but there's also like rides and stuff. So it's like an overblown Chuck E. Cheese or medieval times for kids with less swords. And they stepped in to rescue this restaurant from going under. They bought it, they revitalized it, put a bunch of money into it, and they're also doing some interesting things in the restaurant industry itself. Like they're paying their front of house team members a flat rate, which is something that very few people are getting behind right now. But they're testing that theory to see if that's going to work, to see if servers should be paid a living wage rather than be dependent upon tips. So it's going to raise some interesting questions. It's probably going to have some laughs, and I'm really excited to see it.
It's such an interesting group. I mean, there's it almost feels like a documentary festival this year, but again, that's what we're coming out of. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm hoping we can see some movies. We'll definitely be on the carpet covering some of these, and definitely stay tuned for more coverage. But I'm going to get out of here. But first, where can people find you online, find your work, if they want to follow you?
I still contribute to ain'titcool.com. I just recently joined the ranks of the Cinema Scholars, but if you have to publish anything yet, but definitely check out what they're doing over there at cinemascholars.com. And you can find me on the socials at Eric M. McClanahan.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including our movie reviews, visit our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube, youtube.com/getbehindtherabbit. I'd like to thank my guest, Eric McClanahan, and our sponsors, JMR Rentals and Blackmagic Design. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
This is the BTRP Media Network.